Welcome, everyone, to another chapter of Murder in Stratton County. A murder mystery with twists and turns. Written by Elizabeth Spoon and Ryland Mason. Narrated by me, Brian Shepard. Chapter 15. Just the Beginning, Part 1. Thanksgiving was just in a few days, and now they had yet another dead body on their hands. Leaving the funeral, all three headed for town. Because of the situation, Dugan had no choice and asked for more assistance from the state police. Things in town were getting out of hand, and Dugan wanted it over. How many more people had to die, and why? Pulling up to the marketplace, Jordan turned and looked at Brian. "You go on inside. We'll find out what's going on. Cam and I will join you soon," he said, giving Brian a peck on the temple. Brian got out and went inside, watching Jordan and Cam drive into the direction of Town Hall. They didn't get very far. Jordan noticed that the area was taped off, with the coroner wheeling the body to the van. Jordan put the car in park and got out. Deputy Marks was standing near the tape. "I'm sorry you can't be here right now," he said, looking around to see if anyone saw Marks talking to Jordan. "Well, can you tell me what's going on?" Jordan asked with a tone. "Not at this time," Marks responded with just as much tone that Jordan could tell this wasn't good. He watched them load the body into the van and close the door. "Please vacate this area," he heard from a voice behind him say. It was a state trooper. "Okay, I'm going." Jordan got back in the car and turned around to Cam. Cam leaned forward from the back seat. "What's going on?" he asked. "I don't know," Jordan said, as he also whispered, "Another body?" looking confused. "Another body?" Cam leaned back into the seat. "I'm beginning to think that it's too dangerous around this place. Maybe I should go back to the city," Cam said, looking a little concerned. "No, not till we talk to Brian," Jordan said, looking at Cam in the rearview mirror. They went back to the marketplace, where quite a few people had gathered, not only for respect to Bucky as a small reception, but to gossip about what just unfolded in town, and while most were at his funeral. Jordan took Brian by the hand, clenching it tightly. "It'll be okay. We'll get to the bottom of this." Brian and Jordan went back to the car and got in, heading for the police station. "I'm going to get out and ask some questions, maybe even get real answers," he said, giving Brian one more squeeze before letting go. Brian just looked at him. "I'm coming with you," he said. "Sounds good. If you don't mind, I will remain here," Cam said, putting his feet across the back seat. "I think I'm safest right here in this locked car. If I'm needed, just let me know," he said, folding his arms across his chest. Brian got out as Jordan closed his door. They stared as the stretcher with the black body bag was unloaded and pushed up the ramp to the morgue doors. Jordan and Brian went in through the lobby. It was eerily quiet in there. Brian began to ring the comms button, and Jordan pulled his hand away. "Stop panicking. We will get answers," Jordan said, as Deputy Marks appeared from around the corner and buzzed them in. "What is going on?" Brian looked at Marks. "Not sure, sir." He was about to say something else when the phone rang on his desk. "Hello?" "Yes." "Yes, sir." "Of course, sir." "Okay, I got it." Marks then hung up the phone. Jordan and Brian just stared at each other for a second. "That was the sheriff. He will be here momentarily. He wants you two to wait in his office," Marks said, motioning into the direction of the office, as if Brian didn't know the way. Just then, the comms button buzzed again. It was Cam. Deputy Marks buzzed him in, and they all took a seat in the sheriff's office, to wait. "I am so sorry that we involved you in all of this, Cam. It is not how I thought your first visit would go," Brian said, turning to look at Cam, who had this concerned look on his face. Brian didn't blame him for being scared and confused. There was someone out there killing people. Cam just sat quietly for a minute. "Am I going to die?" he blurted out. "This is worse than the time Mom called and told me that she made a carousel cake, which, come to find out, was a ruse so she could check my car for missing Tupperware. And sure enough, she found it in the trunk. I forgot about the matzo ball soup she made. Mom was not happy. Since then, all I get are old Chinese takeout containers. I can't be trusted with her Tupperware anymore, she says." Jordan and Brian looked at each other. Jordan reassured him that his life per se was not in as much danger as Brian's, but it was pertinent to be on the side of caution. Brian was about to say something to Jordan when Dugan walked in. "Hello, gentlemen," he said as he walked around his chair and sat down, still wearing his suit and tie from Malloy's funeral. "Sorry it took me longer than I wanted to get here. Had to drop the missus off at home and such," he said, loosening his tie. "How was the service?" Brian asked, leaning towards the desk to adjust himself in the chair. "It was a nice service. He was a well-known, well-liked man. Now, to the business at hand," Dugan said as Jordan stood up. "We haven't been really formally introduced. I'm Dr. Jordan Prescott." He leaned across the desk, shaking the sheriff's hand. "I remember you now. You own the old Jones farm," he said with a snap of his fingers. "Yes, I do," he said. Brian, now looking back to Dugan, asked again, "So, what is going on? What happened behind town hall while we were at Bucky's service?" he said, not really wanting to know the answer. Dugan sat back in his chair. "I'm waiting for information, but what from I gather from Marks, it appears to be a possible robbery or carjacking that went awry. We will know more once we establish an identification on the body. Marks is working on that as we speak." Brian leaned back in the chair and looked at Dugan and then Jordan. Dugan scratched at his chin whiskers a bit. He stood up, stretching, and walked over to the door, looking out at the empty lobby. Marks then appeared from around the corner, holding some paperwork. Marks leaned against the wall, handing Dugan the paperwork. Dugan then turned and looked it over, and sat back down behind his desk. "What? What is it?" Brian asked. Dugan just looked up with a grim look in his eyes. Jordan grasped Brian's hand. "Tell us." "The identity of the deceased has come back as follows. Regina Wainwright Rodriguez. Her license and subsequent car registration and insurance on the car confirms it." Brian looked shocked. Dugan read on from the coroner's report. She had been shot twice through the passenger side of her car. She was then dragged from the front seat to behind the dumpster where she was bludgeoned with a brick that was found at the scene. The gunshots didn't kill her. She subsequently bled out from blunt force trauma. If someone had found her in time, she may have survived. He stopped, looking at the two of them. The room fell silent for a few minutes. Brian had never met this woman, but knew who she was. He put his head on Jordan's chest and began to cry. It appears that this was Prudence's mother, coming to collect her daughter's body for services. Whoever did this to silence her. She may have known something and the killer didn't want her talking or revealing what she knew, Dugan said, now looking at Jordan. Brian shook his head, tears rolling down his cheeks. "Dugan, there is a killer out there. He's getting closer and closer. What the hell are we going to do?" Brian yelled as he wiped tears from his reddened eyes. Dugan sat solemnly in his chair. We may have to put you in protective custody until we get this person in cuffs, he responded with a serious tone. What? I can't do that. I'm a public figure. How would that look if I cowardly hide in some safe house while a maniac runs free to stab and shoot and bludgeon people to death? Brian said in the same tone as Dugan. There's no way he could do that. Is there? Marks taps on the door. Sir? Marks said, peeking inside the door. Yeah, what is it, Marks? Dugan responded, looking at him. Can we have a minute? I need to talk to you. Dugan stood up and went to the door. I'll be right back. He closed the door behind him, and Brian could see him talking to Marks. Cam stood up. Jordan, this is a lot for me to take in. I thought that this was going to be some kind of political fiasco, trying to undermine Brian's ability to be in politics. I never conceived all of this turning into a murder plot to snuff him out, or anyone for that matter, out for good, Cam said, shaking his head in disbelief. Jordan turned and looked at Cam. Well, this is what we're faced with, so you better wrap your head around it quickly, Jordan responded, without even thinking. Dugan came back into the office and, taking a deep breath, sat back down and put his head into his hands for a minute. Jordan looked over at him while handing Brian a box of tissues from the side of the desk. We have another problem, Dugan said as he closed the file on his desk containing the coroner's preliminary report. Brian looked up. What is it now? He asked if there could be anything else that could go wrong. Well, the only family Prudence had was her mother, and that's who this is. There's no other family to claim the bodies, Dugan said with a sad look on his face. Brian and Jordan looked at each other. Cam slumped back in his chair near the door, still trying to understand the implications of all of this in the grand scheme conspired by someone to ruin his friend's reputation and ultimately kill him or them. There is no need to worry, as I will take care of all the arrangements with the funeral home and Father Stan, Brian said. He had to do this, he thought to himself. Brian stood up. I need to smoke a cig, he said, fishing them out of his pocket. Dugan looked up at him. I don't normally do this, but I don't want you out of this building alone just yet. Go smoke in the stairwell. Take a cup of water with you, Dugan said. Jordan also stood up. I'm going to go with him. There's no way I'm letting you out of my sight. Any chance you will quit? Jordan asked as they walked out the door. They turned out of the office and went down the hallway to the water cooler, getting a paper cup full of water, then heading to the exit door. Jordan saw the sign for the men's room. Wait here, I have to go, he said, touching Brian's arm. Brian, already stressed out, pushed open the door. I'll be right here, he said. Jordan went into the men's room while Brian stepped out into the stairwell. The door clicking behind him, echoing down the staircase eerily. He lit his smoke up, taking a big drag. He paced the landing, thinking. All of a sudden, he froze. He could hear the door at the bottom of the next level open and close. Half expecting to hear footsteps ascending the staircase to the second floor where he was, he began to feel panic welling up inside him. Unable to move. He was about to yell down the stairs when Jordan came out the door. What? What is it? Jordan asked. Brian leaned in and whispered to him. I think there's someone in the stairwell down there. He motioned quietly with his finger pointing down. Jordan whispered back. What should we do? I don't know. I'm scared as shit right now, Brian said. Jordan decided to just yell out and started heading down the stairs. He got to the next landing and saw a shadow against the wall. Who are you? Show yourself, Jordan said, looking right at the shadow. Brian went down one stair, pleading with Jordan to not go any further. Jordan raised his voice at the shadow, which hadn't moved, but he knew it was there. "You better hope I don't catch you before the police," Jordan yelled. Just then, Marks opened the door. "What's all this yelling?" Just as Marks said it, Jordan watched the shadow flee for the door and bounded down the staircase after it. "There's someone in the stairwell," Brian blurted. Marks pulled his gun and proceeded down the stairs. The door to the first floor was just closing. He grabbed the door before it could close and whipped it open. Jordan was standing there looking around. "Where did they go?" Jordan pointed in the direction towards the street down the hall. Brian peeked through the door. Seeing Marks run with his gun in hand in the direction Jordan said the person had gone, Jordan turned around, stepping back into the stairwell and wrapping his arms around Brian. There was definitely someone there. Marks returned about 2 minutes later, holstering his firearm. "Whoever they were, they are gone," he said. Brian just looked at him. "You think it was the killer?" he asked. "Maybe. Let's get back upstairs and let the sheriff know," Mark said as they made their way back inside. Thanks, everyone. That's part 1 of Chapter 15. Sorry about the ending.